My name is Ariana, and I'm going to be teaching you how to create an isometric illustration in Adobe Illustrator. So the first thing that we're going to do is create our grid. So up here under the line segment tool, you're going to click on your rectangular grid tool, and then you're going to click anywhere in your artboard to create your grid. I have an 8" by 8" artboard, so that's going to be my width and height, and then I'm going to create 100 dividers both ways. And then I'm just going to center my grid on my artboard here. And then we're going to rotate it 45 degrees. So you're going to grab one of the corners and hold Shift to rotate it exactly 45 degrees. Now we're going to click on our Scale tool, and we're going to switch it over to non-uniform. We're going to keep the horizontal at 100%, but we're going to change the vertical to 57.74. It is really important that you get exactly 57.74 because otherwise your grid won't be perfectly isometric. So now we have our isometric grid. You can either keep it on a layer like this and just lock it and build on top of it, or you can turn it into guides, which is what I'm going to do here. So you're going to go to View, Guides, and Make Guides, and now you can turn your grid on and off using Command:. So now we're just going to start drawing directly on our grid. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, I'm going to zoom in here so we can see exactly where we're placing the points, and then you just want to make sure you click wherever it says intersect, because that'll make sure it's right exactly on your grid. And I'm just going to create this right side of the little base that our building is going to stand on. So now I'm just going to grab a darker color and make the top of this rectangle. And you just want to be really careful of where you're clicking and that everything's lining up, because it might look right, but if you're not exactly on the right grid lines, then it's not going to look right when you zoom out. So just make sure you're careful about that. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the side of our little base and then the two walls that we can see of the building using our isometric grid as a guide. Since the roof is at more of an angle, we'll need to take a couple more steps to make sure it's perfectly isometric. So we're going to create a rectangle over our little house as if it had a flat roof. And then we're going to create an X connecting all four corners of the roof using our pen tool without a fill. That way we can see the center of the roof. Now we're just going to create a line on our isometric grid that lines up with one of the lines and place it through the center of our X. The next step is to trace this half rectangle here using our pen tool. And then you're going to take your direct selection tool and select the two innermost points and take your shape and just drag it up to the height that you would want the roof at. Now I'm going to take my pen tool and just connect these last 3 points to make the front of the building. Now the isometric grid is great for making these nice rectangular shapes, but when it comes to curved shapes it's a little bit more difficult. So we're going to create some actions so that Illustrator can do some of that work for us. So we're going to open up our Actions panel, so you'll go to Window and Actions, and we're going to create an action for the left, right, and the top side. So first we're going to create a new action and we're going to call it left, hit record, and then we're going to select our shape. We're going to go over to the Scale tool and we're going to keep it on non-uniform, but we're going to change the horizontal to 82%. And then we're going to change the vertical to 70.5%. And then we're going to go to our Shear tool, which is underneath the Scale tool, and we're going to go -30 degrees. And then we're going to go to the Rotate tool and go -30 degrees as well. And then stop recording. And then we're going to create one for the right side. And we're going to click on our shape. We are going to scale it the same amount that we did the first one, so 82 and then 70.5. And then we're going to shear it, and instead of -30, we're going to go +30 instead. And then we're going to rotate it +30 as well. And then stop recording for that one. And then we're going to create one for the top, hit record. We are not going to scale this one, but we are going to shear it. For the shear, it's going to be +30. and then we're going to rotate it -30. And now we have 3 actions that we can apply to any shape. So I'm going to go ahead and use these actions on some shapes that I've already created, as well as use my grid tool as a guide to finish off some of these shapes. So you can see I add these right triangles to make an awning here, and then split them evenly apart and use my pen tool to fill in the gaps to get a nice angled little roof there. And then I also use this tool to create a countertop that goes against the window that I made. And then I use the pen tool on my isometric grid as a guide. So it's nice to use these things kind of in combination. The actions can't do everything, but the grid can't do everything on its own either. For this little window up top, I use the same trick that we used for the roof, where you create a line going along the grid to create that angle. And then our last step is to create this text. We're going to go ahead and convert it into outlines, and then I use the action to put it on the right side of the building. And I put it in my window, and then I just added a little glow to the ghost and the open sign to make it a little bit more three-dimensional. And there you go. Now we have created an isometric illustration in Adobe Illustrator. I hope you can use these skills to create your own isometric illustrations. Thank you for watching.